Warning, this video contains spoilers for The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 video games alongside the first 5 episodes of the TV series. We need to talk about The Last of Us series because for as much praise as it's getting, I still don't think everyone is fully grasping how big of a deal this all is. Now check out the growth HBO has seen through the first 4 episodes. Look at that last one, 7.5 million viewers, more than Euphoria's 6.6 million for its second season finale, and The Last of Us did it while competing with the Grammys. This type of growth is unprecedented for television, but it's all the more impressive that it's based on a video game, a medium that has notoriously been a graveyard for adaptations, a creative black hole. So why does The Last of Us work where so many have failed? Well, I have 5 reasons why, with the 5th being so important, but I want to begin by outlining the main reasons why so many adaptations fail, and that is a lack of respect for our industry. Because it's been almost 20 years since the first ever adaptation, Super Mario Bros., released in theaters, and film studios haven't changed its original blueprint. You purchase creative control to the original license, you pick, choose, and completely change what you think will work for audiences, and then you hope the fans love the game so much they'll fill the seats. It's all a profit play trying to capitalize on the game's success rather than trying to deliver something special to fans. Because for as long as our industry has existed, we've had to deal with creators and fans of other storytelling mediums looking down on video games, quickly dismissing them as experiences for children, and cultivating this stigma that they're immature time wasters that shouldn't be taken seriously. And The Last of Us looks to be one of the first to bridge that gap. So let's start with reason number 1. The right format for the right game. Now, The Last of Us started as a film adaptation back in 2014, produced by Sam Raimi, and the studio wanted to change the game into something a lot closer to World War Z, which would have been an absolute disaster because you can't take this 15-hour game filled with all of its characters and detours that are necessary to replicate that magic and crush it all into a film. A TV series was the only way to deliver this story, period. And that brings me to reason number 2, finding the right partner. Now, Neil Druckmann never thought an adaptation could work until he saw HBO's Chernobyl, a limited series that I personally consider one of the greatest of all time, and one that was created and written by Craig Mazin, who not only fundamentally understood why our industry considers The Last of Us one of our greatest narratives, but also experienced Joel and Ellie's story through the lens of a gamer. Here's a clip of him talking about how to properly adapt a video game.
Love the characters, love the relationships, love the world, love all the little details, just a true understanding of the material and a love for it. That's essential. Anything else is sort of calculated and cynical and probably won't work.
And that leads us into reason number 3 The Last of Us is so successful: the cast. Casting for a video game is tough because gamers spend so much time with these characters and, most importantly, in direct control of them. We understand more than most the nuances that make them the ones we've fallen in love with, and that sentiment is followed for any and all of the supporting cast. And they've all captured what made us enjoy the time we spent with them in the game. But it's the leads that were most important. Pedro Pascal, a guy who through the smallest of actions has portrayed the same broken, shuttered man we met in 2013, while constantly carrying this underlying fear and sorrow that occasionally rises to the surface. Watching him dismantle those walls and slowly let Ellie in is what made watching this scene, first time we see Joel laugh since this moment with his daughter, one of the most satisfying scenes in the show so far. And of course, Bella Ramsey as Ellie, who in my opinion was perfectly cast because she's such a complex character who has not only lost everyone close to her, but continues losing people she begins to connect with, such as Tess and Sam, and must be embodied by who she is on the outside, a 14-year-old girl navigating this brand new world and learning to trust in someone again, and Bella Ramsey nails it. Now, reason number 4 is The Last of Us. The story itself and the way it's structured, because it's a linear scripted adventure inspired by live action as opposed to open-ended originals such as Sonic or Pokemon. With The Last of Us, there's not much room for interpretation, so every decision is important so as not to disturb the source material. Because Joel and Ellie are fully fleshed out in the game, they aren't vessels for us as gamers to imprint ourselves on. And even when navigating the game, we remain spectators in their story, and that makes the transition over to live action a lot easier. And finally, reason number 5, it's made for us and for them. Because in order to attain the type of success that this show has seen, you must have two audiences in mind, gamers and non-gamers. This is where so many adaptations have failed because studios think that these audiences are interchangeable, and they're not. And the quickest way to lose gamers is changing things for no discernible reason. Sonic fans were right to be upset when they saw that first trailer because you can't take one of the most iconic characters in video game history and turn him into whatever the fuck this was. So when the clickers introduced in the show, it looks and sounds like one because we've already heard those clicks dozens of times. You cannot change it. The episodes are also littered with Easter eggs and scene recreations that are made just for us, to give us the joy of looking at Ellie's backpack and saying that's exactly what it looks like in the game. But Craig Mazin also understood that changes were needed to not only keep non-gamers engaged, but to also reward us, the ones who know where the story goes, and the changes have all served a singular purpose: to elicit a greater impact and emotional response when the show adapts iconic scenes from the game. So for example, making Sam deaf increases the amount of reliance he has on Henry, but one of the most impactful changes made was turning Henry into a pacifist, which Joel is very far from. So when Henry tells Joel he's never killed anyone, it makes the final scene even more gut-wrenching because it means the first person he's killed was the one person he loves more than anything else. And even when he admits that his actions led to the death of Kathleen's brother, that line is there for us. Because unlike non-gamers, we know that it exists as a precursor to Joel's decision, who sacrifices a cure to save Ellie. And I want to continue expanding on the point that this show is made for us, because I'm sure you've heard many fans become vocally upset that the show changed things from the game, but it's such a misguided, shitty take that makes no sense, because television is able to deliver a story in a way that video games can't. So changes are necessary for this to work, but the funny thing is, as I've said before, the changes not only work for TV audiences, but they enhance the core reasons why this game is beloved. Because it sure as hell isn't bloater boss fights and shootouts. It's the story, which is why the best moments on the show are the simple ones where we see Ellie and Joel talk and connect, building that bridge between them plank by plank. Too many of those moments will destroy a game's pace the same way that too many action sequences would destroy a TV show's pace. Watching Joel's ruthlessness as he kills this kid wouldn't have had the same impact if it copied the game and he shot the guard in the head at the beginning and got into multiple shootouts before that moment. Craig and Neil made a great match because Craig's a TV expert who's a video game fan, and Neil is a video game expert who's a TV fan. They balance each other out. And it's important to have someone at the helm who isn't such a gamer that they're afraid to change anything, because if you don't change anything, there's no point to an adaptation. So for example, the introduction of the fungus being able to communicate across distances gives the cordyceps a much more grounded objective, this need to reproduce and connect. And not only elevates them to a much more dangerous role, it gives them this purpose outside of just driving people into biting others. They exist as a mirror to human beings who also exist to reproduce, connect, and survive by any means necessary. The show also expanded the world outside of the United States and created new characters like Kathleen, not just to flesh out the hunters, but her story is like the ghost of Christmas future for Ellie. Kathleen is so hell-bent on getting revenge for her brother, she puts her entire community at risk and then dies because amidst all that chaos, that bloater, her people getting pulled apart, killing Henry was the only thing that mattered. And Ellie watching her die because of that need for revenge was her warning. Heck, the kid who killed Kathleen wearing a literal Blue's Clues shirt represents Ellie's downward spiraling future, and she was only able to escape it because Joel was there to save her, and one day, we know he won't be there to stop it. Kathleen also stated her brother would be disgusted by her actions, that he asked her to forgive, which is a nod to Ellie's future with Dina, and this is all there for us to enhance our experience. And to anyone who complains about these changes, the game isn't going to be updated to match the show. You still have the game. So the addition of Bill and Frank's story was the right decision, because Bill existed in the game as a means to an objective, the battery. But in the show, he has a purpose. His arc has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the story drives Joel towards his revelation because just like Bill, he closed himself off to the world of the living. He also thought connections made us weak. So Bill's story in the show was a bigger catalyst to Joel learning to live and love again than fighting infected to fetch a battery ever would. We as gamers know how the story ends, and these changes enhance that conclusion. We've been taking the same path to that hospital for 10 years, and the TV series is showing us a new, much more scenic route. It's elevating what we already know rather than boring us to death by regurgitating the game beat by beat. Now, let's compare all that to some recent live action adaptations that had nowhere near the impact The Last of Us had, Uncharted and Halo, which, while being critically panned, both succeeded financially because as gamers we love the source material so much, we'll show up even if it isn't what we wanted. This is the Nathan Drake we all loved, but Sony used analytics to cast a younger Tom Holland and rewrote the story to turn it into just another boring treasure movie. So they made something for them, but not for us. Halo did just about everything wrong outside of costume and set design, and it should have taken the same risk Disney did with The Mandalorian and trust that we don't need to see a character's face for them to evoke a range of emotions instead of unmasking Master Chief in the very first episode. It felt like that wasn't made for either us or them. And both of these projects shared one thing in common: production hell. Taking Uncharted 14 years and Halo 9 years to release after their announcement, as opposed to The Last of Us, which was announced and released in under 3 years, and it's because they stuck to what made the game iconic. The Last of Us is one of the greatest video game stories ever told, and the team at HBO have made it look easy, but that's because they stayed true to the cardinal rule. You gotta respect the source material. Now, you made it through a few minutes, so please take the extra few seconds to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.